But we're excited to have a conversation with you. We're going to be presenting first Joohee Son's center in Seoul, Korea, and then I'll talk about the center that we have here at Teachers College. But we really want to make sure we have plenty of time for you to talk about things that you may have, and this is what we wrote up in the overview for this session. Ideas that you've had to, that you want to put into play, things that you dreamed about when you were writing your master's or your doctorate. A lot of people have those big ideas and those big dreams, and it's very hard sometimes once you get out into that cold, cruel world after the warm and supportive world of TC to find that pathway. So we're really here almost as a resource for you, but we thought it would be important for you to see what we've been able to do in terms of responding to some critical needs of our times and for the 21st century. Okay, so I would like to introduce Dr. Joohee Son, who is an award winner from this morning. How many of you were at the morning session? Oh, so everybody saw her and heard her. Okay, so she is here all the way from Seoul, and her dear husband is joining us from the back as the support team. So we appreciate all the effort they've gone to join us today.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, can I have a sip? So, thank you so much for coming and having interest about our studies. So it's I feel more than pleased and honored because she was my advisor. And as I said in the morning, she made a word, once an advisor, forever advisor. So even after graduation, we continue the relationship about building up the centers and also the getting the advices from her and even about the family matters. So now we are here. So most of all, both of us will talk about each center we are running, and then hopefully from today's talk we can find a next step for both of us. Thank you so much.
For all of you.
Yes, yes.
Can I see how many of you are looking or thinking about a next step? How many? Okay. Oh, great. All right. We'll see how we can do this.
Okay. So I think you can put your mic here. Okay. Okay. Like this. Okay. And okay. Good. So. All right. So.
That was her cue, I got. The original title of the talk was Integrating Technology for Teaching English and Developing Thinking Skills, because that is what Dr. Son does. But what we came to after she arrived here and we were able to sit down and talk about this session in person, it's really about inquiring together. She's on her journey, we're on our journey, but we have similar questions in terms of how to use the learning sciences to build learning environments for our students. And so that's what we ended up with, a learning together, an inquiring together presentation for you today.
Okay. So we will start first as an interview, right? So you will ask some questions.
Thank you. That was the other thing we decided to change. Instead of her just presenting, we decided that she was going to I was going to be interviewing her and asking her questions like,
Okay, so like this.
what
Right.
brought you to Teachers College, Joohee?
Okay, thank you for asking.
So after serious prompting.
Okay, so I just put the word limitations because I can tell limitations in my life, every step brought me up to here. It was 1990s in Korea. I was a teacher. I've been a teacher more than 20 years. So at that time, I was teaching English in Korea happily, but it was mostly about grammar. So I thought I need something more for my students because grammar is important, but listening, speaking, writing, those are things are needed, but I couldn't teach because I didn't learn. So that's why at that time I decided to study abroad. And at that time I went to Ohio State University to study TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other language. And after that, I went back to Korea and I established a center, and I was running center for 7 years, and I was teaching again. Happier than before because I could teach speaking and the writing, so felt like a live something. But after 7 years, I felt another limitation, which is about thinking skill. Because I realized when students are talking in English, so pronunciation or intonation, speed, those things are important, but that was not all. There was an invisible ceiling. So get to the point, how I can deliver the message with a key concept. But students were struggling, but I couldn't teach because I didn't learn how to, teach about the get to the point. So that's why that limitation brought me to TC.
So you were dissatisfied, and we're looking for an answer.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So talk about, if you would be so kind, your journey at Teachers College and what you found along that journey, and what was important to you and why.
Okay, so good question, I think, always. So as I told you now, thinking skills, critical thinking skills, those are things I wanted to learn, and I can tell exactly those are thinking skills I could learn here. So what is the systematic thinking skill? What is the analytic thinking skill, creative thinking skill? All those are thinking skills, and which subject is working and not, and how, those are things. So I was very happy, and sometimes I could even cry, because before that I was struggling in my brain, but all other scholars, they finished their research studies, so I could get some proof, data, and confidence, which gave me more confidence when I was teaching. So that was about the first critical thinking skills. And also, I don't know how many of you are Koreans here, but when I was a student in Korea, middle school and elementary school, we were not supposed to ask a question during the class. Because if I ask a question and then teacher will think you're very rude. And also, if I ask a question and then other kids, oh, you think you are that much smart, like that. So atmosphere is not about interactive talking. It's just one way of talking. So maybe because that's why the students had a hard time in making questions, and thinking think itself was difficult, right? So definitely these critical thinking skills were needed for my students and also for myself. So I could learn that part. And also next one is important, presentation skills in English. As I told you, I studied TESOL, so I could teach the speaking and those are things. But I realized when I came to TC as a doctoral student, but even before, I was running my English Institute, which means I had many chances to speak in public. But still, it was challenging to me. And then I found American students. They made their presentation as their show. They enjoyed. So I liked it. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to teach how to present to my students. So, and also I wanted to change the focus from, only speed-based presentation to getting to the focus presentation. So those are things I could learn and study here. Okay, so, and so this one I would say Korea is the habit of learning. So, which is from short-term memory to long-term memory. It's all about the memorizing part. So Korea is one of the countries that mothers have very strong passion for their children's education. So after school, most kids, since they were elementary school, they go to academy. So sometimes 7 or 8 academies, different subject. So learning part, they're good at it. But after that, from long-term memory to transfer, which is full understanding, that part we're struggling with. So that part I could learn. So yeah, I was happy. Okay, so yes. All right.
So you go through, you found the courses that you wanted, you found the knowledge really, right, that you wanted, and you were able to begin to address some of the questions that you had and some of the frustrations.
Right.
Then what happened
Okay, good.
after graduation?
All right, thank you. So I promised to myself and to my students, I'm going to learn and teach how to get to the point, right? So I established center, which is called Center for Education and Technology. So students are from kinder up to 12th grade. And CET, the Center for Education and Technology, our center has the goals about enhanced 21st century thinking skills based on cognitive theories. And second goal is improve English proficiency based on research and technology. And third one, provide self-regulated learning environment. So we designed the curriculum, and then we're trying to embed thinking skill into areas, so reading comprehension and writing. So for example, like reading Sherlock Holmes, and then we're asking students, okay, what if Holmes couldn't find this clue, and then what would happen, like that. So we designed, and also that's the focus thinking project. So I'm gonna show you some project we did, 2 things. So this one was about creativity, thinking skill, and English. So we gave the task to the students about, okay, so creativity is all about changing the angle out of box. And then let's be an ant. So draw a picture with ant's point of view on a rainy day. And then they were the second graders, and 95% of the students, just they drew the ants with their eyes. So just ants on a rainy day, just walking, right? But 5% of the kids changed the angle, and they looked like that. So they were drawing, so with ant view. And then this is English learning also. So we told them to write, to describe your picture, and then presentation. So all the task is ending with presentation. So, and this one is another the task project. This is about problem-solving skill in English. So we give the mission, like we give the problem situation. So last one, this creativity activity is based on Sternberg's studies. But this one, Bransford's studies about the problem-solving part. So we give the problem situation. So this one was, okay, interview foreigners on the street and ask them what is the most inconvenient thing when you visit Korea. And then a lot of things, money change, those are things. So low graders, they ask, that means speaking. So interview, and then find out what is the most difficult problems, which was sign. Because in Korea, many signs are written in Korean. So, and then pass to higher grader, and higher graders, they have to find a solution. So divide into teams, it's a group project. And then, so winning team is no homework, 1 day. But they were really working hard. So the solution at the time, like a Google glasses, so so like this, and then changing into English, like that. So just all the students, have the vote, raise their hand, and oh, I like that team. So then that will be the winner. So that was the like a offline project, thinking project. Okay. Okay. Oops. I'm sorry. I moved to next question. Okay. Yes.
So where are you? Where have you left? Where are you at this very moment in time?
Okay,
And
okay.
how have you gotten there?
Okay, thank you. So after I went back to Korea, after finishing doctoral study here, and then this center was doing the thinking project as an offline. And then I realized a certain point, even though we keep telling the students, oh, you speak too fast, or oh, you don't say any reasons or details about your opinion. Would you please say that? Like, we give some feedback so often, but they don't listen. They look like listening, but they don't. They are making the same question, the same mistakes, right? So I was thinking, well, then we have to make a system, like a feedback system. So we made a system, which is students get the question. So they're using cell phone, only using the cell phone. So then with ID and password, and okay. So this is called Tails. So I made a name on it. Okay. Oh, before explaining that system, I'm going to tell you what it is. So those system is based on my doctoral study. So dissertation and about 20 years practices got together and made CET online speaking system. So big difference is that about the feedback is not only English, it's accuracy, fluency, and thinking skill. So if they, so this is a tails, okay? So we're helping get to the point, okay? And then we give the feedback about thinking skill and English. So this one. So if they go inside a classroom and they get the topic, for example, do you prefer, to be an only child or to have sister or brother? They have to think. And then using the cell phone, they don't have to change the screen, just click the button and then record. But if they don't like it, and then they can do it again and upload it. If they upload it, and here center, the teachers look at the video file and then write down the feedback about accuracy, fluency, and thinking skill. So about the feedback, the good thing about that is that we made it, the teachers, when they give the feedback, they can pinpoint out. So, this part, like between the beginning and the 10 second, you were mumbling, like that. And then when they look at the feedback, they can just click the button. And then they can match. Oh, I was really mumbling. Or, I spoke too fast. So with the written feedback and then video file matching. So with this online feedback system, the one thing is amazing thing is that since last September, a small group, 40 students of school, they started to use that online feedback system during one term, which is 5 times of the feedback. So each one lesson took 2 weeks, which is 1 month and a half. But one thing we found that, and we didn't know that, is with our CET students, they were offline center, which means we were teaching the reading and storybook and speaking all together. But the online is only focused on speaking, right? So we could see the big difference before and after feedback. It was amazing. So after that, they started 40 students at school, and then after that, they said, we need more. So now, since 2 weeks ago, 120 students have started. So before, 40 students, 5 times lesson, which means 200 data. So based on that, we analyzed the data. Okay, so we made a system. So this system is, if we study like about 100 and then 6 times lessons, and there will be 600 data. So the feedback will be rich, right? And so I will show you the sample, okay? I got an agreement from him and his parents to show you. Okay, so this one is before feedback. So, okay, all right. Okay, yeah, show you.
Hi, my name is Joohee. To make good friends, we need to be good friends first. Second, listen to friends well. Third, respect friend feeling. Fourth, spend time with friends like to homework together or hang out with friends. Fifth, we need to say good words to friends, but we should say no if they do wrong thing. When we do like this, we can have a good friend. Thank you.
So he's fifth grade. So this was the first recording for him. I can tell his phonics is not bad. He can speak English, but he needs more confidence. And also at the time when you see, so I think this is a good thing about looking at just the video, not only audio. He's reading, not talking, right? And then, okay,
Slide.
yes. And then this one, after 2 feedbacks. So he got 2 feedbacks. First of all, he's smiling.
Hi, teacher. If I have a brother or sister, I want to have a younger brother because we can play soccer, wrestling, and video games. My friend has a younger brother. He's so funny and cute. Sometimes he is annoyed, but it's fine. I think younger brother is better than a younger sister. Thank you.
Okay, so it's amazing.
Bye.
So he got more confidence.
Much more.
And I will show you another boy. I love him because this boy, I had a brief talk with his mom. He didn't have enough chances to learn English. So, but this boy shows a lot of passion, want to say something, just want to say something. So a few words just spit out. So that's before feedback. Okay.
I think that the good friend is honest, kind, helping sick and upset people, always happy, and not selfish.
Okay. The previous boy, to him, we told him more about the fluency area with thinking skill, but this boy, we'll try to give him more thinking frame feedback. So even though we didn't teach pronunciation, but he could learn about how to talk. So after that, okay, after 3 feedbacks, so he got the format.
I agree about students should do their homework because first I can study to homework. For example, if I have a science homework, then I can study science one more time. And second, I can understand that study today. That's why I agree about students should do their homework.
Okay, so still he needs to improve English. So, but he got more confidence and he could make his own thinking frame and he could deliver the message. So happy for him. Yes, so this is what we are doing. And next, can you move on? So actually, that's your question. So
Your next steps.
okay.
Your next steps.
Okay.
Looking into the future.
All right. Thank you. So I put the word equality because in Korea, I can tell, have you heard about the Gangnam style music? So Gangnam is the center of Seoul. My center is located at Gangnam. But I can tell there is a huge gap between local areas and Gangnam areas, especially about English education. The teachers and students, so they don't get the equal feedback and input about their language. So I really want to help them. So this online program doesn't have to be limited by the space. So we can offer through online program. So our first and second projects are going on with schools. So why not? We can knock the door to the schools in local areas, and also, why not, to the countries who want to learn English. So for equal input and quality of English education, we want to spread out and planning for it. And second one, also I was thinking teacher education. For me, bachelor, master, doctor study, subject groups were teachers. I'm very interested in teacher education. I've been a teacher more than 20 years. Still, I can say that I'm a teacher too. So teachers should learn how to ask a question to help the students explore their ideas. So I believe Dr. Meier can help us about the teacher education. So we are seriously talking about opening up the courses for the teachers. So how we can, because for example, about that online course, and then if the teacher can help, assist, and that will be wonderful. So yeah, that's all about it. And then last, I will show you about our students at CET. This is 1 minute. Okay. Thank you. That's all about our center. Thank you. And now, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we should open it up to questions briefly that you might have, and if some people have thought. Some cards back. Maybe I'll just put this in paper. If you want to take one and you don't want to raise your hand, or you know you're not wanting to raise your hand, but you have a question, that'd be great. Are there any questions for Joohee?
Can we use the microphone?
Do you have any questions for Joohee? Yes, please.
We just saw a documentary on college, the anxiety over college acceptance. Do you have that in Korea? Do they have low-cost education available for all students?
Actually, I could watch that documentary. So your question is that whether we have.
Is there still anxiety about getting into college and then being able to afford it?
Yes, sure.
Acceptance and affordability.
So we do have those programs, but still I can tell in comparing local and the Seoul areas, I can tell because I have two sons. First son is a high schooler in Korea, and second one is a middle schooler. So high school kid is all about thinking about they're going to college, right? So I'm very interested in those help, but I would say that it's not that much systematic at the school. There is a counselor, but in Korea, Seoul areas, there's a huge business about helping students how to go to college currently. So rather than getting help at the school, the kids getting help from outside of the school. That's very sad. So for me, I'm a working mom. I'm busy, so I'm not good at getting all the going to college information. So my son has to take care of it. So I would say that we do have, but not that much, desirable inside of school. Okay.
Is it expensive?
Pretty much. So, yes.
are there, is there legislation in progress to address that issue, to make it more affordable?
Yes, 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 yes. So specifically, I don't have specific information, but there's a huge needs. To be honest, there was a drama in Korea about criticizing current, the system in education. So there is a lady gets a lot of money to give the advice about how to go to college. So, in the middle of the drama, some characters, suicided, those are sad stories, right? But what happened is that after that, those businesses became much better because even the people didn't know whether that kind of services, and wow, is there that kind of services? We should get it. So it went opposite way. So yes, expensive, yes. Okay.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I'm
Thank you.
always late. And so I missed sort of the beginning in your presentation and don't have that information with me. But anyhow, thank you for being here. And
Thank you.
do you have experience with a similar type of school or model for teaching outside of Korea and in other areas of the world? Just out of curiosity.
So your question is the difficulties of teaching outside of Korea?
Oh, no. It's more of what you've done and the work that you're doing and showing us. Are you familiar with similar models or experiences in other places in the world, other countries?
I don't have experience teaching abroad, but I believe because I have international friends when I was a student here. So we share the stories, how they were educated. So I can assume many students from Oriental countries, so Japan or China. So I think here many Japanese and Chinese students so could have similar problems. I believe so. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much for being here. Two questions, one of them being the fact that I see that you have a lot of work that you have done and performed with younger students,
Right.
Children, school age. What is your thinking about students who come in of older age? Adult education, primarily those who come from all over the world and they are in an institute here in the United States trying to acquire the language, whether it's for their own purposes to go back to their countries or because they want to go and do pathways to universities.
Okay.
What would be your take on that?
Okay. Thank you for asking that one because that's a very good question. We have the students from kinder up to 12th grade. But the thing is that as you've asked, as the kids going up to bigger, it's a high schooler, thinking about a university, and then mothers, even though they agree the importance of thinking skill, but if their kids become, the high schoolers, and then they just go back. No, we have to think about the score, going to college. So that's why, realistically, I want any age, but elementary kids are free from big test. So that's why mothers could send them, their kids, more, just freely. So that's why. But I was a student, a foreigner student, to prepare studying abroad. So I know how much it's challenging. So I really want to help those students who want to study abroad. First of all, we opened actually a TOEFL speaking section online course because in Korea, comparing to other educational software or online courses, they have the programs for helping them how to prepare the TOEFL test, but the feedback is not full enough. It's not helpful at all. So this is what I experienced with my high school students to prepare studying abroad. TOEFL perfect score is 120. But if the kids score over 100, they can apply for good schools like Columbia. But I can tell between the score 100 and 120, English level is similar. They're good, pretty good, over 100. But it's very hard to, to increase the score, after 100. Why? Not because of language, but because of thinking part, getting to the point. So writing and speaking, there's a section. So even though they're good at it, they can write, very long and fast, but there's no point. And the speaking, they talk very well. So pronunciation is so good, but no point. So yes, so we help them intensively. So there was some groups. So and then the students showed, the over 110 score. So I think, that's a pretty good population we can offer online program. But this one, especially the TEOS, online feedback system, we're just the beginning stage. So surely we are open. Okay? Yes. Thank you.
I have a question. It sounds, from what you're saying, it sounds to me as if you focused on providing the feedback system and a certain level of engagement by virtue of using the critical thinking questions that you used to create engagement and creativity and not simply kind of rote responses. So how else might you use this program in anything else other than basically teaching English in Korea? Because both of those items are very important in kind of in any instruction that you provide. The second part of my question is, I'm curious as to what your center does as well. So maybe you could explain that a little bit. But if you could help us with, because I think everybody would agree that if we could keep kids engaged, creative, and getting feedback quickly, we're going to improve performance. So how else might we apply this?
That's a very promising question. I have to think about as another next step. So actually our center's vision is to be an international Christian school. So our center stage is a membership stage. So we are becoming to a school itself. So personally, I'm very interested in teaching other subjects too, and I believe so. This feedback system can be applied to other subjects too. For example, about the writing, students, when they write, brainstorm, and then they may have some problems in getting to the point, like 3 reasons and the 3 examples, like that. So about the writing courses can be used. And also for math, if a student makes a mistake in solving the math, and then usually they check the answer, and then they realize, oh, this is right, yes. And then when they solve another question, they make the similar mistake. So the problem was that, in that case, if a learner makes the mistake, and then brain is getting used to that mistake path. So if a student gets wrong answer, and then rather than checking out the right answer before, they have to check out why they chose that wrong answer. And then from that point, they may not go back the same path like that. So huge potential, I can tell. But we started from English learning, so that's why we are teaching English. But this can be used for other subject and also various age group. Yes.
think we are going to move on and do exactly as you asked and talk a little bit about the Center here for Technology and School Change. And I'm going to ask if you can just advance. I'm going to walk around a little bit. But basically, Joohee's talked about her contribution to working with folks who want to, the children who want to learn English, but she embeds the critical thinking skills in that process. And she's ready now, as she just said at the end of her talk, to reach out to other teachers. We have an approach for doing that, and that's where we come together, and that's why we have talked about collaborating and Joohee starting essentially a sister center. So I'm going to move quickly because I really want to save enough time for those to talk about your dreams and what you would like to do to act on them. But this is Dr. Sean Peters, who's one of our facilitators. We have quite a group of facilitators. We're working with 50 schools this year and 3 internationally. We're working in 3 different countries, about to be 4. We have our emphasis is moving from theory to practice and then back from practice to theory again, because we enter the field, and I'm going to be describing that, with a lot of theories, but we test that. And then we come back and we say, that theory really needs to be adapted or adopted in the following way, changed in the following way. We emphasize, we work in 3 different areas. We do a lot of research. We have a National Science Foundation grant, second one, and I have a little video on that to show you. We do a lot of evaluation work. Because we're focused on technology, there are a lot of software companies that want to know, is this effective, does this work? But we do a lot of other evaluation work with people who are trying to do the same thing or similar things, want to get into schools and help teachers think more deeply about what they're doing in terms of practice. And then to do that, we thought we needed to do learn how to do professional development ourselves. You can't just talk the talk, you really need to walk the walk. So we're in the schools every day, in those 50 schools, working in various ways, which I'll describe immediately. So here's our mission statement. We're committed to creation of innovative learning environments. We really want to help break the mold, if you will, for all students, recognizing that technology is a catalyst for transforming instruction. Contrary to what you might think with the title, we're really about how you can use technology. Technology is not the end. It's merely a means to get to a richer pedagogical environment for our kids. It's a catalyst for transforming instruction, and therefore we engage in research and practice to reimagine approaches to an equitable education in the digital age. So as I said, we start with theory. The learning sciences have really come into their own in the last decade or so. There are 3 things here. There's the second book, by the way, came out. It has just come out. And I'll think of the name momentarily, but it goes more deeply into the learning sciences and where we are. It's a very accessible group. If you're a practitioner or if you're a theorist, it will appeal to you. But for instance, traditionally what we do is we learners treat course materials unrelated to what they already know. You walk into a biology class and voila, you're going to start from scratch. You're going to learn all about biology. But if you're in, say, 11th grade, you come to that classroom with lots of information. You know about how grass grows, perhaps, or you know a lot. And so one of the things we don't do very well is build on existing student knowledge. And in deep learning, which is on the right-hand side, what they're saying is that deep learning requires that learners relate new ideas and concepts to previous knowledge and experience. Therefore, the challenge becomes, how do we help our teachers do this kind of teaching and not assuming a blank slate when our children walk into our classrooms? Similarly, on the left side, in a traditional classroom, learners memorize facts. We know in different countries that's still the practice, and it's very much the practice here, and carry out procedures without understanding how or why. We're just doing it. That lab, that chemistry lab, we just do it, right? But deep learning requires that learners look for patterns and underlying principles. They're there to find those patterns, not just go through a process. Last, learners treat facts and procedures as static knowledge handed down from an all-knowing authority. Yes, that physics book contains everything we ever needed to know about physics. But now we know that learners understand that learning itself, that knowledge itself, is a process of dialogue. And we create knowledge and examine the logic rather, of that argument critically. So that's a very different way of looking at learning. It's a huge paradigm shift for all of us, but it's especially pressing and difficult for teachers who are still caught in a very traditional cycle of teaching and testing and teaching and testing. But we have to break this. We know about how the synapses connect now, and so we have to find ways to open up those pathways for teachers. So,
Go back one slide.
sure, sure.
Number 5, does that really speak against online learning as isolated learning from a student versus having dialogue with other people and having a context in which other people speak?
Do you want my politically correct answer or my other
No, your
answer?
real answer.
My real answer, I think online learning is still in its infancy. I think we need a lot more work in understanding how to connect more deeply with our students online. And the way many platforms, and I've written about this, are set up is to here's the information, take the multiple choice test. Not to denigrate a lot of online courses because many of them are richer than that, but the way the platforms themselves are written really promotes that kind of learning. And I'm seeing some new and very exciting interfaces right now. So there's hope. But right now, I think we're just beginning to find out how to teach and work with people online. Yeah, good question. So the question for us was, how can we use these learning sciences? Yes, we're learning about how learning happens, but how can we use it for pedagogical information? That's the huge cavernous leap. So here are just 3 things, for instance, that are sort of implied. We need, just as we were talking about, to understand the pre-existing knowledge of our students. So how do we do that? How do we teach subject matter in depth and show the links between concepts? Teachers haven't been asked to do this necessarily, right? How do we help them start to do that? And finally, how do we integrate metacognitive skills into the curriculum? That was just what Joohee was talking about. She was saying kids don't reflect necessarily on the wrong answer, they just go on. We need them to stop and think about lots of things in the classroom. So from the learning sciences, we've learned more about how to create optimal learning environments, but teachers have been prepared to teach traditionally. And the school structure reinforces traditional teaching. 2 bad things. So what we have found is a process, really, of trying to introduce a different way of thinking. Project-based learning is not new. It's been around for a long time. But what we found and what the literature talks about is the fact that it hasn't been done very well. It hasn't been done very deeply, to use the other term. It's a very, if you're not familiar with it, it's 3 big ideas: desired results. As the kids walk out the classroom, what do they know? But how are you going to know that? What evidence will be meaningful to you? And from that, you plan the learning experience. Usually it happens the exact opposite direction, right? You plan what you're going to do, and then you hope the kids learn it in some way, shape, or form. So we do bridges, and we find that technology can be a catalytic tool. A lot of teachers want to learn how to use technology. We don't teach technology without linking it to this other way of learning. This is our model: design, situate, lead. Teachers need to be prepared to be designers, not consumers of curriculum or perpetrators of curriculum. They need to be designers of curriculum. We situate our work. It's very important to us that each classroom is considered an entity unto itself. Each school is very different. And so we work very hard to make sure that we're meeting the needs of individual teachers in the culture of a particular school. And finally, lead. We want to support leaders in guiding and sustaining these changes. We want them to make structural changes in the school, introduce block scheduling. One school introduced Friday as a STEM Friday, just where all the teachers could be doing projects together. So there are a lot of things that can happen that principals have power over within their school. I'm going to leap ahead because we're running out. This is our NSF grant. I think we'll just keep going.
Okay.
Yep, we're working with 13 schools.
Okay.
I don't know if we have time for this video, but basically it shows a classroom working. I think it might be important just to show the
Yes.
classroom. Okay, it's 3 minutes long.
Oops.
No, yeah.
So,
The video link, maybe?
Okay,
I don't
here.
think so, actually. Yeah, there. It does.
Okay.
And then if you
yes, yes.
make it big. highlights our project, the systemic transformation of in-period learning environments, or STYLE for STEM. The need for STEM education grows out of a real need for today's educators. How do we prepare our students to become creative problem solvers that use disciplinary knowledge in a more fluid way to address 21st century problems? This project uses a model that we have developed over the last 15 years, an approach that highlights three critical areas of work for us. Designing the project with the teachers, situating the work in the lives of each school and each classroom, and lead, the need to really engage our administrators, our leaders in the building and beyond, and also our teachers. We're really asking teachers to teach or engage with their students in new ways on STEM projects. They need to be co-investigators with their students. They need to be able to identify authentic problems that will engage their students and help them move effortlessly between the different disciplines in the investigation process. We're trying to accomplish several things in the STYLE 2.0 grant. First, we want to develop a refined STYLE approach that can be tested for efficacy at scale and that can contribute to a broadly adaptable curriculum for STEM teacher development. Second, we want to develop a suite of resources, digital case studies, that capture the essential components of the STYLE approach and can support schools in developing STEM teachers. We also want to develop a framework for successful STEM facilitation that can be used by schools and districts to support and to identify STEM instructional leaders. We also want to improve teacher capacity to develop authentic STEM learning experiences for students. And finally, from a research perspective, we want an improved understanding of our own STYLE implementation across multiple teacher orientations and across many schools. As we continue to collaborate with teachers in designing inquiry-driven classrooms, we believe this NSF research is an important investment in our children's future. Thank you. Full confession, we had to make this to put up on the NSF site, so of course we had to make sure they knew how important the work was, and it is.
You know,
It's really
how do we go
a
back?
great.
I mean, to the next.
Yeah, that's okay. I think I'm going to wrap up here and open it up. Yeah, it may or may not be possible, sorry. Because I did want to have some time for you guys to talk and to share ideas that you might have in terms of I think the work that we're doing is really very important. I think the work that Joohee is doing is very important. I think staying in touch with each other has been meaningful to both of us. But I think we have a lot of work to do as an educational community. There's just miles to go before we can sleep. So I'm interested in hearing about your ideas and seeing if there are ways to help any of them move forward. So is anybody really brave? Yes.
TC grad. We were in school together. I remember you. Yeah, instructional media technology, 2006, I think, was when I graduated. But what happened to me recently actually changed my perspective. I was diagnosed with cancer, and while I was in recovery, I actually found out there were a lot of children who were in the families with cancer, and started working with them and formed a robotics club at one of the Gilda's clubs. And that became the beginning of what I do a lot of now, which is called Wellbotics. And I work with children in trauma through this idea of those kinds of connections. So the whole problem-solving thing comes up. There's a lot of other kinds of ways that I find that that environment helps people to be able to kind of connect with each other, and then also to kind of give them some perspective on what it means to have a problem, and even a problem you can't solve, and how to think about it differently.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very, very powerful. I also think that, and I'm sorry to hear about your situation, but I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Woo! That's great. I lost a sister to cancer, so I understand. One of the things that I think is really important for kids, and we played around with this idea, we weren't able to get funding for it, but when you're isolated as a child with an illness, we were talking about reaching out to kids who are going dialysis, which is a very lonely experience. They really need to connect to each other and share their stories because they're ostracized, right? So if there are ways to connect them, and if there are ways to connect them to other people, if there are ways to connect them to children around the world, I mean, it's a very powerful way to utilize technology and to give them courage maybe, or inspiration, or any of the things that we all need when we're battling a major illness like that. Were you looking for ways to move forward with that idea, or you're?
Yeah, definitely looking for ways to move forward. I've done some work with Riverside Church.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, definitely looking for ways to move forward. I've done some work with Riverside Church up the street, and it's become like now the adults want to be a part of it because they are
That's wonderful.
looking at the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would like to definitely find a way to move forward with it.
Okay. So I don't know that we have a help desk set up for this particular, but leave your name and we will see what we can do. Who knows? There might be some funders in the room, for instance, who would be interested in helping, or other paths for you. But I think it's important to see that there's a way forward. I really do. Yes?
Just riffing on this question of isolated learners, have you looked at what homeschooling parents do to leverage technology and the kind of technology that kids own? They have cell phones, they may have a tablet.
Right.
Most likely they have a laptop.
Right.
And then along those same lines, using maker spaces and local libraries.
Right. There's a lot of work going on to, I like to call them the educating institutions. Museums, public broadcasting, ways of reaching, libraries, all of those other institutions. By the way, for New Yorkers, in New York uniquely, the Board of Trustees is over all of those educating institutions. And I co-chair an advisory council to the Board of Regents to help think about how all of those institutions can use technology as a unifying force, if you will, for learners throughout the New York State. The homeschooling has been, I don't know enough about it to speak eloquently, but I do know that there are packages for them. I mean, there are ways in which that work is provided to children, and it's on a district by district level. So it really depends on how the district innovates around it. But very often, in the same way we were talking about online learning, there's information, and then the kids have to send things back, multiple choice, or it's sort of, it can be perfunctory in a certain way. And so I think there's huge potential there to do more interesting things and to get them engaged in authentic projects around the home. But I'm not sure right now that many of the homeschooling systems are set up to do that. But the potential is there, absolutely. Yeah.
I have a question. You pointed out earlier that it's the way we've taught teachers and it's the way we've structured the classroom that creates some of the problems. Now, that video that you just showed us addressed the issue of how students engaged, different kind of classroom structure. Mm-hmm. A lot of teachers would look at that, and I shouldn't say a lot. I know many teachers that I've worked with would look at that and say, oh, this is chaotic, these kids aren't really learning, et cetera, which I don't believe. But the one thing that I thought was missing at the end of the video, which I would love to have seen, were there any academic results that you can report out on that would say this is what's happened with that group of kids in terms of performance that would kind of close the loop? Because you can, when you say to people, if you do this and this, you should get better outcomes, they're going to want to know, well, prove it. And I'm just wondering if you even have any of that kind of data.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is the $24,000 question, of course. What is the proof? We're midway in our NSF grant, so the proof is still a few years away. However, what we know, and I had another video at the end, what we hear from our teachers is that these kinds of projects engage our children. What you have to avoid is a busy project, a project where kids are just doing activities, and they're fun activities, so everybody's having a good time. But nobody really can tell you what they learned at the end of it. There's a very famous apple project that Wiggins and McTighe write about. Everybody goes to the orchard, they pick apples, they come home, they make applesauce, and you know, everybody's happy, happy, happy. But what was the point of all of that, you see? And so one of the things, we've been called in many times by schools who are trying to do project-based learning, and they're dissatisfied with the rigor. You have to have a very rigorous project, and it means that the teachers really have to be prepared to do really thorough and thoughtful designing around standards. So if we can start to link some of these things, we believe, we know that engagement happens. We know that our teachers find out new things about their students. And the other video I had was with a school, middle school in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and 80% of the kids are homeless. So, you know, they're not coming to school, they have all sorts of issues. And what the teachers reported at the end of the project that we did, which was the essential question, was, where do I come from? For 8th graders, you can imagine what a powerful question, where do I come from? That's exactly what adolescents are asking. And right now they're coming from a homeless shelter for the most part. The teachers reported seeing new things in the way their kids were working, new skills, new strengths that they had never noticed, because from a traditional standpoint, a lot of times it's very difficult for kids who are in that kind of situation, for any kid. But so I think that we know that certain things happen. We know that the 3 schools that we worked with in our first NSF grant made structural changes. They saw so many good things happening that they changed the way they were going about the school day in order to make sure that more of this could continue. So I think it's part of the future. I think we have to think very carefully and deeply about how to move forward with that future, but I think also the accountability and the way we think of achievement has to change, and testing has to be rethought so that it can become meaningful. So I'm a big fan of portfolio, and again, that can be a silly exercise, or it can be very powerful and meaningful. We need to think that through and see how we can help teachers make it meaningful to the kids and to the parents and to the institutions that everybody reports to. We have 1 minute. Anything else that, yes?
I'm sorry to ask again, but this is in my mind. And for several years, we know each other, and we have discussed the need that, or the impression that we do have the technology exists, and the major challenge is that the people in charge of the technology to deliver curriculum are not properly trained. Now, my question is that I know that there are many ways to train teachers, and I try to do my share with my teachers. However, this comes already after the fact, when they already have so many things that are embedded in their own way of old-style teaching. So it's a lot harder to just take them from that point and bring them to a new perspective. Now, the question is Teachers College, is it putting something in the pre-service curriculum for teachers? A course, a class that it's specifically going into teaching teachers in the new way of teaching with technology?
Another $64,000 question. My answer is I believe yes. I oversee a master's program for preparing technology specialists who are essentially change makers who go into schools and help teachers use technology in the ways we want them to use them with project-based learning. I think we can always do more, and I think they would say we can always do more. One of the problems that I always hear about is that people are not necessarily even Teachers College, but graduates of teacher training institutions graduate and they go into traditional classrooms and they're required. I remember working with another project and they were teaching project-based, and they said that the young people said, yes, I'd love to use this. I'm committed to it. It's changed my life. It's changed how I'm thinking, but the first 3 years I have to get tenure. So I'm going to use that textbook and do it the right way. So it's part of a systemic change that we have to think about. All the different pieces have to shift. The accountability, I think, most importantly, because that's what everybody uses to measure. But all these other pieces are important too. So if you would like help or would want to talk further about your ideas, maybe it's a hard forum to do it because everybody's here, but come on up and we'll take your names and see what we can do. Okay?
So let us thank Dr. Meier and Dr. Son for their help today.